What's up, everybody? Cranky Yankee back here to give you another breakdown. And so I'm just going to give you a top line summary, as I always do, of all these sessions immediately following it. I'll keep this one shorter. Got a lot of feedback, so I'm going to try this version out, just keep it really, really short. But if you're new to the channel, make sure to subscribe and follow so we can grow the channel, but you can get all these updates immediately following the race, so in every session. So we got the Brazilian Grand Prix FP1 session, Alex Albon leading, and ironically, actually, Alex Albon red flagging the session. So he led the session while also having a wreck. Three of the Red Bulls had a spin. Verstappen, Albon, and Kvyat all spun. Albon red flagged the session with about 90 seconds left, so he ended with a 1:16.142 with 9 laps. It was pretty rainy, so it was one of those where going out and getting lap times on the rain would have been helpful and useful from a telemetry and just the data standpoint, but it was pretty risky. So it was pretty wet, held true to form. Interlagos is always like this. It always has some sort of rain, you feel like, and the chance of a virtual safety car is pretty high here. So I think that will, if you remember 2016 and Verstappen's troubles. But regardless, the session was wet. A lot of the teams were hesitant to run. As you'll notice, some of the drivers didn't even really record a lap time. Hamilton, Verstappen really never even recorded a lap time. Sergio Perez. So so it wasn't really the most productive session or effective session. All it really did prove was it's tough to drive in these conditions, and Interlagos is pretty treacherous as a track goes when it's wet, just because of the old school, like we talked about, and I'll link to it, but like we talked about in the circuit guide, it's a pre-World War II track. So the breakdown of the results from the session is Albon in P1, Valtteri P2, Vettel, Leclerc, and Carlos Sainz. Again, this may not be terribly indicative of the pace in each of the cars, representative pace on this circuit, because the rain was pretty off and on, sporadic, but at times it was making it relatively undrivable. But that's not to say it was a worthless session. Like I said, we did see a lot of the drivers get in there and drive around. Latifi saw some action, but again, not the best session from him. It was the rain. That is a tough ask to drive someone to jump in an F1 car and drive in the rain around a tough track. But he had some bad luck, and he didn't really drive too well with too much pace last time out in USA Grand Prix FP1 session. So I still think he's kind of a lock for that seat, but not the best session today. So yes, not a lot of summary for the Ferrari or the Renaults for that matter. So no one really showing anything in terms of pace, or nothing really new coming out, other than aside from the driving, it is confirmed that Leclerc will have still at least a 10 place penalty. So he won't be starting at the back of the grid, but it is going to be 10 places. And if they add anything else, it might be more, but for sure it's going to be 10 places. It is also confirmed in the session. It was confirmed that it is a spec 3, so it's not a spec 4. So it's just going to be what they've had. He'll return to the same pace that they saw at Singapore. So that's what they anticipate. It's not going to be the new engine, considering it's 2 races left, not a spec 4, so a spec 3. And the other interesting piece of news that came out during the broadcast was the FIA is still, and this came after a Christian Horner comment, was saying they were still looking into the oil performance of the cars. Because he's on the pit wall. Christian Horner was talking about the fact the FIA is still digging in deep, and he was kind of basically defending Max Verstappen's comments about how Ferrari's cheating. But yeah, that's basically the news that all came out, and that's what we saw in terms of everyone's pace. You see George Russell at P11. Again, none of this is terribly indicative of everyone's pace per se, but it did show that it is really tough to drive here around the wet, and you hate to see it, but Albon making another mistake, and hopefully with the fact that he's been confirmed recently as a 2020 driver for Red Bull, he can bounce back from that, and I'm sure he will, as he always does. But the car looks fine. I think he'll be fine for FP2 here in 90 minutes. But that's a quick update for you guys. I'll put the link to the blog itself down in the description below, but that's the table, and that's the breakdown of the news. Everyone looks fine. Couple spins, from 3 of the Red Bulls, and it looks like we don't really even know what everyone's pace is going to be. But we know for sure when it's wet, it's tough. But I'll see you guys for FP2. Thanks for checking this out. I'll upload any of the onboards they let me upload, and I'll see you soon.